My stepfather kicked me out at 12 after being falsely accused by my stepsister. Years later, she stole my $1 million work. But I had cameras and left them speechless. I'm 20 years old. I work as a freelance designer and programmer, and honestly, I need to get this story off my chest because there are people who don't understand why I want nothing to do with my family. They tell me I'm cruel, that I should forgive, that at the end of the day they're my blood, but they have no idea what happened. I guess I should start from the beginning. When I was 10 years old and my dad died. My dad was literally my best friend, my hero. You know, that kind of father who teaches you to ride a bike and stays up with you doing science projects until 2 in the morning because he wants your presentation to be the best in the class. He was like 38 years old when it happened. He was super healthy, or so we all thought, and one day he was playing with me in the backyard, and suddenly he grabbed his chest and fell. Massive heart attack, that's what they called it. I watched him die there on the grass, waiting for the ambulance that never arrived in time. I don't remember too much about the months after that, honestly, just that I cried every night, and my mom seemed to be on autopilot. Like she didn't talk much, she just hugged me and cried too. What I do remember perfectly is when I met Roger, like 6 months after the funeral. My mom told me she had met someone and wanted me to meet him, and I was confused because I thought we were still in mourning. But well, I was 10 years old. What did I know? Roger was tall, had this smile that I now realize was super fake, and talked very loud, like he wanted to fill every space with his voice. He brought his daughter Megan, who was 11 years old, and I remember she looked at me like I was trash from the very first moment. My mom was so different with Roger. She laughed a lot, but it was a weird laugh, nervous, not like before. Like 3 months passed and my mom told us that Roger and Megan were going to move in with us. I didn't want them to, but it's not like my opinion mattered, right? The day they arrived with all their stuff was when my life really went to shit, though I didn't know it yet. Roger said they needed my room because it was bigger, that I could move to the guest room, which was basically a closet with a window. My mom said yes, like it was nothing. And when I tried to protest, she told me I had to be understanding, that Megan needed space for her things, that I was smaller and didn't need that much. So they moved me to the tiny room. And not only that, Megan took a bunch of my stuff, toys my dad had given me, video games, my comic collection, and said they were hers now because they were in her room. Roger backed her up and my mom said nothing. I literally watched them take the last things I had from my dad, and I couldn't do anything. When I cried that night, Roger banged on my door and told me to stop being a baby, that it was time I grew up and accepted that things had changed. The next 2 years were horrible. Seriously. Roger treated me like I was a nuisance in his house, when, technically it was my house, the house where I had lived with my dad. He yelled at me for anything. If I left a glass in the living room, if I made noise, if I breathed too loud, basically. Megan was worse because she was more subtle, like she would hide my things, tell Roger I had done things I didn't do. One time she even spilled milk on the floor and said it was me. And my mom, honestly, she just stopped defending me. Every time I tried to talk to her, she told me Roger was the man of the house now, that I had to respect his rules, that she was trying to build a new family. When I was 12 years old, something happened that basically destroyed me at the time. Megan and I went to the same school. She was 1 grade above, and turns out she stole the answers to an important test from the teacher's office. I don't know how she did it, but she did. The day of the test, the teacher found the answers in my backpack. I just stood there, paralyzed, because I had no idea how they got there, and Megan was sitting 3 rows back with this angel face, acting all surprised. They took me to the principal's office. They called my mom and Roger, and Megan told them she had seen me stealing the answers, that she had tried to stop me but was scared I would do something to her. She cried and everything. It was a perfect performance. Roger exploded. Started yelling that he had always known I was a problem, that I was just like my father, who, according to him, was a failure. And that hurt more than everything else, because my dad had been amazing. My mom just sat there, staring at the floor, saying nothing in my defense. I got expelled from school. They didn't believe me when I said I hadn't done anything, that someone had put that in my backpack, because obviously Megan was the perfect witness and I was the problem child of the blended family. I thought that when we got home, my mom would at least listen to me, that she would believe me, but she didn't. Roger said he couldn't have a lying thief living under his roof, that he had given me opportunities and I had wasted them. My mom sobbed a little but didn't say a single word. Roger told me I had 10 minutes to pack my stuff and get out. I was 12 years old, you understand? 12. I told my mom, "Mom, please, you can't let him do this." But she just shook her head and said maybe it was for the best, that I needed to learn about consequences. I packed the little I had in a backpack. Roger kept yelling at me to hurry up, and when I came downstairs, Megan was there with that smile, and I knew in that moment with total clarity that she had planned all of this. She looked at me and said quietly, so only I could hear, "Now the whole house is mine." I went out on the street with my backpack and didn't know where to go. I walked for like 2 hours to my grandpa's house, my dad's dad, who lived on the other side of town. When he opened the door and saw me standing there crying with my backpack, he hugged me and told me to come in. I told him everything, absolutely everything, and he was furious, wanted to go confront my mom, but I begged him not to because I was scared things would get worse. My grandpa told me I could stay with him as long as I needed, that this was my home now. Living with my grandpa saved my life. Literally. He was like 65 years old back then, was retired, and gave me all the love and support I needed. He enrolled me in a new school, talked to the principals and explained the situation, and I was able to start over even though the expulsion was on my record. My mom called like twice in the first months. Super awkward conversations where she asked how I was, but never apologized. Never said she had made a mistake, just said she hoped I was learning my lesson. My grandpa noticed I liked to draw. I was always doing sketches in my notebooks, and he bought me a used graphics tablet, one of those old Wacoms, but it worked fine. He told me I could use his old computer to practice, and that's how I started. I taught myself graphic design watching YouTube tutorials, then I learned some programming because I wanted to make websites, and basically I became obsessed with learning everything I could. It was my way of escaping, I guess, of not thinking about how my mom had abandoned me and my stepsister had destroyed my life. When I was 14, I was already doing decent designs, like logos and flyers for small local businesses. I charged super cheap, but it was money. My grandpa was so proud. He told me I had natural talent, that my dad would have been super happy to see me. By 15, I already had several regular clients. I did web design, corporate identity, even some simple animations. I saved all the money I earned. My grandpa didn't charge me rent or anything, so I was able to save quite a bit. In school, I did well. I graduated with honors despite all the drama, and I decided not to go to college because I was already making money with my freelance work and honestly didn't want to go into debt with student loans. My grandpa supported that decision, said traditional education wasn't for everyone, and that I clearly had my own path. I rented a small apartment when I was 18, still visited my grandpa all the time, and my business kept growing. During all this time, 5 years, I didn't hear anything from my mom or Roger or Megan. Zero contact. My grandpa told me he had heard they had moved to a bigger house in a nicer neighborhood, that Roger had started some kind of consulting business or something. I didn't care, honestly, or that's what I told myself. But obviously I cared, because it still hurt that my mom had chosen them over me. Then when I was 17, almost 18, my mom showed up out of nowhere. She knocked on my grandpa's apartment door. I don't know how she knew I was there that day, and when I opened it, I froze. She looked older, tired, and started crying, saying she had missed me so much that she needed to talk to me. My grandpa was behind me and told her to leave, but I said it was okay, that I wanted to hear what she had to say. We sat in the living room, and my mom started with this speech about how she had made mistakes, how she wished she could turn back time, blah, 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 but she never said, "I'm sorry," directly, you know? She never really admitted what she had done. And then she got to the real reason for her visit. Roger had lost his job. Things were tough financially, and she had heard I was making good money with my design business. She asked if I could help them, like loan them money or give them something every month. I sat there, staring at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. I asked her if she was joking, if she really thought I was going to give her money after she threw me out on the street at 12 years old. She said, I was her son. That family helps each other. that Roger was under a lot of stress, and Megan was in college and they needed financial support. I told her to leave, that it wasn't my problem, that she had chosen her family and I had built my own life without her help. She got angry, called me selfish, ungrateful, said my dad would be disappointed in me, and that's when I yelled at her to get out once and for all. My grandpa literally kicked her out of his house, and after she left, he hugged me while I cried like I hadn't cried in years. I blocked my mom's number, forgot about it, and moved on with my life. Things got more interesting when I was 19. By then, I was already working with big clients, medium-sized companies that needed complete brand redesigns, websites with complex functionalities. I charged well and had more work than I could handle. I rented a small studio to work because my apartment wasn't enough anymore. I hired a couple of freelancers to help me with big projects. Basically, things were going really well. One day, my grandpa called me and told me he had seen my mom at the supermarket and that she had told him Roger was in serious legal trouble with his business, something about fraud or tax evasion. I'm not sure of the exact details. He also mentioned that Megan had been expelled from college for plagiarism, that she had turned in work that wasn't hers and they had caught her. He told me all this just as information, not because he expected me to do anything, but honestly, I felt a weird satisfaction, like karma, you know? A few weeks later, my mom started sending me text messages from a new number I didn't have blocked. She said they were going to lose the house, that Roger was probably going to prison, that Megan was devastated and without a future, that they desperately needed my help. I only responded once. I told her to remember that day when she threw me out on the street at 12 years old, to think about how I managed on my own as a child, and that now they could do the same. I blocked that number too. Later, I found out through my grandpa that they did lose the house, that Roger went to prison for like 3 years, that my mom moved to a tiny apartment, and that Megan was living with her without a job or studies. Part of me, a very small part, felt sorry for my mom, but most of me just felt nothing. I had spent my emotions on that family a long time ago. When I turned 20, a few months ago, things got really crazy. One day, I was checking Instagram and saw that someone had posted some designs I had made for a client, but the account wasn't mine. It was Megan's. She had uploaded like 5 of my designs, pretending she had created them, with captions about her portfolio and her creativity. I got so angry that my hands were literally shaking. I took screenshots of everything. I had all my original files with dates and metadata that proved they were mine, and I reported each post for copyright violation. Instagram eventually flagged her account and removed the content, but that wasn't enough for me. I got her email and sent her a message saying that if she used my work again, I was going to sue her, that I had evidence of everything, and that I wasn't the 2-year-old kid she could manipulate anymore. Her response was super aggressive, saying I was nobody, that she could do whatever she wanted, that I had no way to prove anything, basically trying to intimidate me like she always had. What she didn't know is that I had already grown up and I wasn't going to be bullied. I talked to a lawyer, one whose website I had designed and who owed me a favor, and he helped me send a formal cease and desist letter. I thought that would calm things down, but like 2 weeks later, the police showed up at my studio. Turns out Megan and her boyfriend Kevin, a guy I never met but who I understood was just as crazy as her, had filed a report saying I was selling counterfeit designs, that I had stolen Megan's work and was passing it off as mine. It was surreal. The officers asked me to explain the situation and I showed them everything, my files, with dates, emails with clients, contracts, all the history that proved the work was mine. It became super clear really quick that the report was false, and the officer in charge asked me if I wanted to press charges for defamation and false report. I said yes, absolutely, that I was sick of this family trying to destroy me. I filed formal charges against Megan and Kevin. My lawyer helped me with all the paperwork, and basically a legal case was built. But wait, it gets better, or worse depending on how you see it. Like a month after all this, I arrived one morning at my studio, and the door was forced open. Someone had broken in, they had broken the lock, and some things were missing. Specifically original printed designs I had framed on the walls, paper sketches I kept as creative backup, and my new graphics tablet that had cost me like $1,000. I have security cameras in the studio. It was one of the best investments I made, and when I checked the recordings, I almost fell over. It was Megan, crystal clear, entering with a big bag, grabbing my stuff, and leaving. She had put on a cap and dark glasses, but it was obvious it was her. I would recognize her anywhere. I had perfect evidence of a crime, breaking and entering and theft, all on HD video. I called the police immediately, showed them the video, and they went to arrest her that same day. I recovered most of my things, but the frame designs were bent and ruined, like she had tried to force them into her bag and they got damaged. That hurt more than the tablet, because those designs represented my growth as an artist. They were works from my early years that I kept fondly. Megan faced criminal charges for breaking and entering and theft, plus the defamation charges she already had pending. Kevin was also still in the case for the false report. My mom called me from another new number, crying, begging me to drop the charges, that Megan was facing jail time, that I was destroying my family. I told her. She had destroyed our family 8 years ago when she let me get kicked out, that this was just consequence of their actions, and I hung up. I didn't drop anything, obviously. Megan ended up with probation, community service, and a restraining order that prohibited her from approaching me or my studio. Kevin also had legal consequences. My mom tried to sue me afterwards. Literally sued me, saying that as her son, I had a legal obligation to support her financially. Her case was so ridiculous that the judge dismissed it at the first hearing, told her it had no legal basis and she was wasting the court's time. Right now, at 20 years old, I have a design and programming business that's going super well. I work with clients in several countries. I make more money than I imagined I would at this age. My grandpa is super proud. He says my dad would be just as proud if he could see me. I bought my own apartment last year. I have a studio with better security, and basically, I built the life I want completely on my own. My mom? I haven't heard anything from her in months. My grandpa told me, Roger got out of prison recently, and they're living together again somewhere. That Megan is still without work and living with them. I don't care, seriously. It doesn't affect me anymore. I blocked all the numbers they could use, changed all my social media to private, basically closed all the doors. People tell me I should forgive, that holding a grudge isn't good for me, but they don't understand that this isn't a grudge, it's protection. Forgiving doesn't mean letting them back into my life to destroy it again. Forgiving doesn't mean helping them when they used me and threw me away when I was a child who needed them. I've built something good for myself, something stable, and I'm not going to let them ruin it. Last week, I was working on a big project for an international client, and my grandpa stopped by the studio to visit me. He brought me coffee and sat to watch me work for a while, and when I finished, he told me my dad would be really proud of the man I've become, despite everything. That made me feel good, better than any apology my mom could offer at this point. And honestly, that's enough for me. Having my grandpa, having my work, having my life that I built from scratch after they left me with nothing. I don't need that family, I never really needed them, and I definitely don't need them now.